Oh, I forget where all my buttons are. Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. We are live on Rockfin, ROKFIN.com. Please hang out with me on Rockfin. The early chatters are in. Everyone say hello to Muzza. What's up, Muzza? And let's get into this. One more thing I forgot to do. Guys. Here we go. Why can't I get it together? Here we go. All right. Well, you all should be seeing that. It's from Scott Duncan. It says, Spain, you okay? Alicante just recorded 29.2 C today. Not so long ago, some parts of Spain were sub-negative 20 C with deep snow cover. January has been one heck of a roller coaster for our Spanish friends. Yikes. And again, I'm going to, quickly go to find out what 29C is in Fahrenheit. 84 degrees. Ooh, balmy. And it is that a normal temperature for... Was that a normal temperature for Spain in January? I wonder. 84 seems awful warm. Seems really warm. And yeah, to go back to that, we'll look at this just a little more. 29.2. Well, so a little bit warmer than it. So 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Toasty. And then this is what it was not too long ago. Not so very long ago, on the 12th of January. Spain seems to be another one of those places that generally gets it seems to get the brunt of climate change situations, right? Spain also one of the places that experiences frequent wildfires. In general, frequent heat waves. Loey Appet says that's really hot for Spain in winter. Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, it's a Mediterranean climate. We have a Mediterranean climate in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles, we often do touch 85 in the wintertime, but it is, that's pretty warm and pretty abnormal, I'd say, for January. But it happens. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but still to go from negative 20 C to go from negative 20 C to 85 degrees is a serious whiplash. Let's go to Zach Labe. Annual temperature departures across the Arctic over the satellite era. Over the satellite era. So you know, again, normalish-ish. And you can see these red, deep red splotchy things starting to begin in about 2007, when it really just turns red and kind of remains red. And then obviously 2016, very, very red. 2020, very, very red. How long until this is completely deep red? How long until this circle is just a big blob of deep red? Dr. Jennifer Francis says, a work of art, though very disturbing. Let's move on to this from PFD Earth. We are currently on an RCP 8.5 trajectory. We are currently on that trajectory. RCP 8.5 being the worst case scenario. Right? That is the worst case scenario when we are on that track of worst case scenario. This hasn't changed by 2100. Again, whatever 2100 means. This means 9 Fahrenheit above pre-industrial. And I feel like that's almost kind of low. What does that translate into Celsius? I think that was like 3. Ish. I would say that is, by 2100, that is low. No ice on the poles and 100-foot sea level rise. That's 80 years. That's the time period from just before World War II to 2020. That is fast. This is literally an emergency. And again, I talked about it a little bit yesterday on the other channel. Encouragingly, the Biden administration is at least operating as if climate change is real. It might be a real threat. It might be something that they have to do something about. Again, are they going to fall far short of the mark? Most likely. They will most likely fall very short of the mark, but at least it is encouraging that, they're admitting it's true. Poppy Davis posted this, I think yesterday. Biden's environmental actions thus far as of day 7 back in Paris. Okay, that, does that really mean anything? Revoke the permit for Keystone XL. Okay, that's good. Again, long term, does it stay revoked? Does it turn into a just long term court battles that just drag on for years and years and years? Most likely. Restored several national monuments whose footprints were reduced by Trump. Okay, just going back to where we were before Trump. So, again, okay, that's fine. That's good. We're reversing the damage done by Trump, but we need to do much more. I think I believe that I saw something about the fact that the Biden administration at least said, verbally said something about committing 30% of the wild or wildlife, or 30% of areas for protection. Again, I don't, what does that mean in the long run? What does that actually mean? 4, he paused oil and gas leasing in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Again, just reversing what Trump did, which is good, but not necessarily, this is not going above and beyond, not going far past the mark. This is just like, well, we're going to just do these very, very, very just preliminary steps. Five, terminated the construction and funding of the wall. Okay. Again, The wall didn't need to be there anyways, and that was a ridiculous idea, and it was a ridiculous thing to do. Not only that, what does that even mean? Because there actually was some wall before Trump. There actually was fencing, wall. There's a lot of infrastructure at the border engaged in thwarting, illegal crossing. So, and that was happening before Trump, long before Trump. And it's going to continue to happen after Trump. So I think this is just, again, we're not going to do that wall thing anymore. Okay, great. But we're going to do a whole lot of fence. But you guys won't know about that because I'm Joe Biden. Because, Democrats are good. We only do good things. So you won't hear anything about that. Anyways. Again, we can be encouraged about the very small things, I guess, but obviously we need way more than that. Way more than that, like the total reconfiguration of the entire society that we live in. What's up, Rockfin people? How you doing? Urban Hermit is on Rockfin. Kevin Shanholzer says the ProPublica article on Columnist was very heavy. It was heavy. I thought it was a good article. I hope that people are reading that article. Ken Greenfield, how you doing? 6 a.m. in Australia, good morning. And Ryan Gorman says, reverse the damage done by Obama, reverse the damage done by Bush, reverse the damage done by... Yeah, exactly. And I'm with you on that. Yes, what if we go, what if we go all the way back Bush... Well, we've already actually gone, Obama did reverse some of the things that Bush did, to his credit. Bush literally stopped the, electric car production and greatly reduced, research and development of electric vehicles and that whole movement, the whole push on electric vehicles. They subsidized people buying SUVs. The Bush administration was an absolute disaster for the climate. And the Obama administration did reverse some of those things that Bush did. However, the report card on the Obama administration, fair to middling. And again, what does it really all mean in the long run? It was very tepid, very weak steps. That's just real. Not only that, let's go on about the Obama administration. The Obama administration promoted being energy independent. The U.S. being energy independent. They really ramped up fracking. Fracking was, A-OK under the Obama administration. And, and with that promotion, obviously, it's promoted all over the world. Wherever else that they could do fracking, they did fracking. Canada being one of the places that are like, let's totally do fracking. So, yeah, the report card on Obama, fair to middling, if not kind of shitty. Unapologetic Vegan says, planning day for my garden, all drawn up and deciding what goes where. If you garden, get your seeds now. Yes, yes, yes. Jacob Gordon, Obama, Trojan horse, yay or nay? Well, on many levels, yay. Osama is hanging out with us on Rockfin. What's up, Osama? All right, let's get into what I really wanted to talk about today. Was this thread by Ben C. He says, true or false, we've only got 60 months left to slash emissions to zero because carbon-sucking technology doesn't work and never will. And then he reposted this and said 59 months, right? This is from December 2020. He reposted it and said 59 months, and that, that's appropriate. Let's just, let's keep the clock running on how little time we have left, either on this planet or to do something about our situation. He goes on to say, the graphic is based on a scenario with a 66% chance of avoiding 1.5 degrees. 66% chance. It's a little bit over 50. If we can't rely on large-scale carbon sequestration, then the global community has to zero out its carbon emissions by 2026. And good point, because are we going to have any? It doesn't look like any of the technologies available to us the tech fixes, if you will, available to us are ready to scale in 5 years. It doesn't look that way. And it looks like, are we even going to start scaling those technologies in 5 years? So if we only have by 2026, let's get going. By all means, let's get going. And I'm going to say this, I think that we should totally, wholeheartedly endorse and do this. Someone, I can't remember who, maybe it was Rick, left a comment about, kind of discussing global dimming, or the fact that 2020 was so hot because of lack of air travel. Well, I disagree. He was kind of bringing it into historical context, as in, there was a large surge in temperatures mid last century, 50s, 60s. But that is attributed to all the pollutants that were in the air. The initial rise in emissions at that time in the early 20th century, into mid-century, and a lot of those emissions were it was dirty coal, dirty cars, dirty planes, et cetera, et cetera. And in the 70s, we started to put things into place to kind of reduce emissions, or reduce, the particulates in the air, the pollutants, at least visibly. And so that I think that's a good thing. And we saw a kind of a little dip in temperature. So could it be, he's attributing the dip in temperatures to global masking. Why wouldn't the dip in temperatures be to getting some of the sooty, super dirty emissions out of the air? I'd say, the likelihood is as much that, if anything else. And again, the study, the abstract that I read the other day about the fact that we lost emissions last year, actually that could have led to some cooling, right? So, right, we're going to lose some of the global masking, but the thing is, if you take emissions out of the air, you're also taking out the immediate heating that those emissions create, right? So you're actually cooling and possibly heating at the same time. Which one's going to win? Nobody knows. But it's not like, well, we lower emissions and we just start heating because we lose global masking. No, we actually lower emissions. We lose those emissions too, right? We lose a lot of things fall out of the air that contribute to heating as well as cooling, is what I'm trying to say. So there's no reason why we shouldn't go forward and try to get rid of emissions. And, again, with a large emphasis on natural uptake of carbon. Agricultural regeneration, regreening, rewilding, et cetera, and maybe we can take a little bit of technology into play as well, but we don't have to rely on these technologies if we do this quickly enough. Again, I'm speaking as if we're all going to organize ourselves and actually do that. Ben C. goes on to say, what if I told you the Paris Agreement on climate change relies on technologies that scientists know do not and will not work? Ding. Ross Cobbin says, but so much of the heating is latent. Sure, you're right. There's heating. There's latent heating. You're right. However, there's also heating that's going to not take place because we are lowering emissions in the air, right? If you stop emitting methane in the air, the methane dissipates, and yes, it does turn into CO2 because that's what methane breaks down into, and that's not a good thing. But at least you take the immediate heating of the methane out of the air. And they were also talking about nitrous oxide being part of the mix. Anyways, we really don't know what's going to happen if we lower emissions, but we do know what is going to happen if we keep emitting those emissions. We know what's going to happen. So why don't we just do the thing that we should be all doing and all behind, and then let the cards fall where they may. He goes on to say we need radical emergency action in the 2020s to get towards zero emissions, but journalists and editors aren't explaining why. They just stick with well-established faulty narratives. Yes, Ben C., yes. Even the best specialist articles miss crucial facts. Thank you for pointing that out, Ben C. A rare article on being in the grips of net zero fever. Missing context. Warming is likely accelerating, right? IPCC's 2030 target doesn't account for feedbacks, right? Zero emissions by 2026 needed as nets won't work. 2C horror before 2035 is possible. Thank you, Ben C., for also alluding to the fact that we're probably going to get to 2C by 2035. And when they talk about, we need to avoid, need to stay well below 2C, and that we won't see that until 2040 or 2050 or 2060 even. No, we could see 2C by the end of this, if we're not already at 2C, we could see it by the end of this decade. Somebody tweets out, we have the best quantum technology, the most efficient and economical, right? Might not cost a lot of money to not have to ramp up all these technologies to avoid destroying ourselves. And I do mean building billions of cars, electric cars, and efficient washing machines and stoves and refrigerators. No, we cannot do that. We cannot do that. Building millions of or thousands of super efficient airplanes. No. He posts a picture of trees. This is the quantum technology, the most efficient and economical. David Wint says the smart money says we won't slash emissions to zero in 60 months. I'd really love to be wrong, and yeah, and he's pretty right about that. Apparently, some see this discovery of natural gas reserves in the Arctic as good news. The Kara Sea resources in the area are vast and could become the basis of new petroleum province, comparable with the Gulf of Mexico or parts of the Middle East. Yeesh. Someone else chimes in, says, no one rational who accepts these repeated warnings and examines history and the state of our societies can possibly believe those sorts of cuts will be made in those time frames. We live in a paradigm of resistant, reactive stupidity, which only a time machine might cure, maybe. Excellent point. It says 2021, we must now become our own heroes. Someone else says, if we dropped 7% emissions this year, can we drop 7% next year and be on the decline? Will carbon pricing adopted possibly at Glasgow make a difference? Well, yeah. Probably all the answers to that are no. We won't drop 7% this year unless we get another big coronavirus lockdown. And we won't do a climate change lockdown. But literally, if we wanted to slash emissions 7% this year, we would have to do a climate change lockdown. Y'all ready to explain this to your friends and family? Well, at least it won't. Maybe or maybe not. Will it involve wearing masks? He says we may not drop 7% this year. It would take radical global action, and we need 15% or even more. I'd have thought. Yes, exactly. The IPCC RCP 2.6 and 4.5 assume removal of 2 gigatons of CO2 per year through carbon sequestration mechanisms that don't work or ecosystem restoration that will not happen. But that is only 5% of current total emissions. The role of carbon removal on the deadline is rather secondary. So I would say the answer to your question is mostly false. Since the deadline remains mostly unchanged with or without carbon removal, the core issue is decreasing actual emissions in the very short term, not the unfeasible carbon removal tech. Someone else says false, 6 months. We have 6 months. I don't know, interesting thread from Climate Ben. From Climate Ben. Again, I don't see it happening myself without a revolution of human beings on an intellectual and a spiritual level, on a cultural level, and then that revolution needs to either completely engulf the governments of the world or remove the governments of the world, or the corporations of the world, the oligarchs, the people that control the systems, how we live, how everything is organized. Those are the people that control how everything is organized. Schultzy 100 says, howdy, climate change lockdown. Ha ha, right on, baby. Right. Scott Andrews, eat the rich is trending. Yes. Yes, it is. Siri Iriot says 2C will bring on the burning hot endless summers while militarized communities will have to protect their farms and water from rivals. Mad Max was probably more prophetic than we ever realized. Kiro Hike says methane. Max Sarjay says the man from Mars is eating up cars and bars. Indeed. Sulfur dioxide blocks heat from entering and it dissipates. Yes, John Allen, we will need an epiphany of monumental proportions indeed. Rich Diana, local and tribal. Well, that's the only way we're going to survive, and even if everything collapses, that's the only way we will be living very soon. So I suggest people get local and tribal right now before the collapse, because that's how we're all going to be living very soon. Jacob Gordon says Mad Max was actually optimistic. Kevin Shanholzer on Rockfin says climate change at close range. I like the way you rhyme. Bars. Siri Iriot says 30 years from now will be the fossils. Mad Max was a documentary. Nazbanab says tribalism is kind of cringe. Well, I mean, a lot about the future is going to be kind of cringe, Nazbanabs. Our future is cringe. Gene says collect hand tools and tools the Amish use. Thank you for your practical advice, Gene. I appreciate that. Like, for real. Start just doing super practical, logical things like collect hand tools and tools the Amish use. Indeed. Well, guys, Jacob Gordon says a lot of stuff about the present is cringe. Yes, indeed. Kiro Hike says CO2 and methane are a much bigger problem, and arguing about global dimming is pointless because we now have mega forest fires every year. Global dimming is just useless to talk about at this point. Kind of, yeah. I agree. All right, guys. That's it for my time. I'm going to be on the Neo-Realism channel talking about politics and current affairs, or the news of the day, at 12 noon, so in about 30 minutes. You can find the link on my channel. If you just go to my channel page, Neo-Realism is linked to the page. Anybody who wants to go over there and talk about politics, current affairs, the news of the day, please meet me over there in a couple minutes. Until next time, peace.